Well, hey everybody, I hope that you've been having as much fun as I have with the book of James. I love this book. It's lots and lots of fun, and I hope it's being helpful to you in terms of practicality and ways to live your everyday life. So thanks for being a part of that. Hey, thanks for joining us. And so I want to remind you, if you are joining us on any format, whether it's Facebook or whether it's the website or Boxcast, be sure to download the app. If you haven't, get that. If you've got it, man, just click the home button and then sign in right up at the top. That helps us to know you're with us. We'd love to connect with you, and the only way we can do that is if you sign in. So please be sure to do that. And remember, if you're on Facebook, man, we love to have a good time together. So share that with other people and be sure to comment back and forth because it's a great time together. These social posts are funny, aren't they? I mean, I had to do it just the other week. The reality is almost every day now, you probably have the same experience, and that is I see a post about politics, about the pandemic, about race, whatever, doesn't really matter, but every single time I see one of those posts, I feel the need, the compulsion to respond, right? And so I think to myself, my temperature starts rising and I can feel my blood sort of boiling and I can feel my heart racing, and then I start typing, right? I start clicking stuff down and I start getting tense, and then I have to go, pause, Humbert, pause, and then I delete, and then I write, and then I delete, and then I write. And you ever had that experience? It's this whole sense of, I've got to respond, I've got to tell you off, I've got to tell you what's on my mind, I've got to tell you how I want to think. And you can just feel yourself getting stressed and anxious and uptight, right? And the reality is that'll happen in a conversation as well, whether with a family member or a friend or a coworker or a neighbor. And there are these moments when we just have to give our speech away and these words come to the surface that we want to just tell somebody off. Isn't it weird how words and speech and even texting or typing or posting can be so disruptive and potentially dangerous and somehow sort of disparate in the ways that we contact and communicate with each other. It's hard these days, isn't it? It's just hard. And I reflect back when I was a kid. Man, I don't know how old you were, but my hunch is every last one of us at age 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7, we got these 2 life lessons. Sometimes they came from mom and dad. Sometimes they came from a teacher or maybe a Sunday school teacher. But we all got the lesson. You remember, it went something like this. It would say, if you can't say something nice, say nothing at all. You remember that? This was a life lesson. 5, 6, 7 years old. If you can't say something nice, say nothing at all. And then, of course, the other one, when we got hurt by somebody's words, mom or dad or somebody would say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, you know, as a kid, I believed all of those. I believed strongly in all of those. But the reality is I think I only believe in the first one now. You got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because I've become aware that my words and your words and our words can be really hurtful, cause great harm, really disrupt our lives. I mean, we're living it every single day in these social posts or in these conversations that we're having with people, and we've seemed to have lost all sense of civility. It's a shame. And I think, unfortunately, moms and dads, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas, sometimes we are to blame, because we learned these lessons ourselves as children, and yet we're instilling some other concept in the ways we're communicating. I saw a meme just this past week. It was pretty powerful, as silly as it was, but look at it. It goes something like this. Son, if you can't say anything nice, say something clever but devastating. I mean, you may have never heard that. You may have never said that, but my hunch is we've intimated that in the ways we live our lives, in the ways we communicate with other people. And we've got a lesson from James today, the brother of Jesus, and he's got a powerful word to share with us about the words that come out of our mouths. You know, this brother of Jesus had these profound insights, right? We've been discovering them, how to deal with anger, how to make faith take action. And today he wants to speak about these words. And I'm going to suggest not words that come out of our mouths, but words that come off of our fingers, whether texting or posting. And he wants to share with us this wisdom. In James chapter 3, he has this great powerful insight about the power of words. Now, the reality is James has got a whole bunch more to say in chapter 3, but we're only going to focus right here because it's very powerful. Here's in part what he says about mouths and words. A bit in the mouth of a horse controls the whole horse. A small rudder on a huge ship in the hands of a skilled captain sets a course in the face of the strongest winds. A word out of your mouth may seem of no account, but it can accomplish nearly anything or destroy it. It only takes a spark, remember, to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony to chaos, throw mud on a reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it. Smoke right from the pit of hell. I don't think James is mincing any words here, is he? He's pretty clear. Words have power. And he goes on in this fascinating way to make this analogy that even though this little bitty tongue is a small part of our bodies, man, it has power. Like the bit in a horse's mouth or the rudder on a ship, it has power. Like a spark of a forest fire, it has power. And he wants us to know it has power both for good and for bad. To destroy things. Did you hear him use that language? To destroy things. Can you imagine? This little bitty thing has that kind of power. And I want to say, man, he's right. And you know what's fascinating to me is here we are less than a full generation from Jesus' day. We're probably somewhere between 20 and 30 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. And already in the life of the church, it's gone haywire. People's mouths and thoughts and words are causing problems. Man, there's nothing new under the sun, is there? I mean, we think this is a modern day problem, the way we post or way we speak or the words we share. Man, this has been going on for millennia. And James wants us to realize the power of words, both for good and for evil. And man, we've felt them, haven't we? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been in those conversations where I was cut at the knees by somebody's words, or I'm ashamed to say I've made every attempt to cut somebody at the knees with my words, whether in print or from my mouth. And of course, in these days in which we live, golly, just months before the election, there's all kinds of words being shared about all kinds of candidates, and much of it is nasty and mean and ugly. And here's our reality. We cannot control anybody else. I can't control what somebody else says to me. I can't control how somebody else places their posts on social media. What I can control, and what James is calling us to control, are our words. What comes out of our mouths, off of our fingers. That's what we control. I mean, in this world with so many thoughts about the pandemic and clearly a whole bunch of thoughts and philosophies about race relations, we need to watch our words, friends. We need to challenge ourselves to hear the power of what James is pointing out, that there is the power for good or the power for evil, the power to build up or the power to tear down by everything that comes out of the mouth of our bodies, off of our tongues. And this wasn't just James speaking. His brother Jesus had a word or two to say about the mouth. I recall in Matthew's gospel, Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and they were talking about how he needed to eat the kosher foods, the clean foods. And Jesus had a powerful word to share with them. He said it like this in Matthew chapter 15. He just said, look, it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that come out of your mouth. And all Jesus meant was, it's not so much as what goes in us that causes that problem. It's what comes out of us that causes a problem. And isn't that true? We can get in so much trouble and cause so much harm with our words if we're not careful. Jesus said a similar thing in Luke's gospel in the 6th chapter. He just said, look, what you say flows from what's in your heart. Hello. I mean, remember that if I speak words of anger and angst or vitriol or viciousness, guess where it's coming from? Likewise, if I speak hope and kindness and compassion, guess where it's coming from? Jesus pulled no punches, and his brother James likewise pulls no punches about how important are the words that come out of our mouths or off our fingertips. And look, this is being built off of what James has already told us. You remember a few weeks ago when Pastor Doug talked to us and he reflected on what James had to say about being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And this is the sort of fruit of that word that he wanted to share with us. And last week we talked about how faith has to take action, and it's rooted in doing things. And I maintain that in part what action means is what I speak, what I write, how I interface with other people. James is speaking volumes into who we are, about how it is we need to live. And in part he wants to say that little bitty tongue, that little bitty thing that has so much power, control it as best you can, work with it as best you can for good, not for evil. Because ultimately, I think this is James's wisdom here in chapter 3. I think ultimately James's wisdom is our words have the wonderful opportunity to have impact not only from our lives, but on the gospel that we claim. Every word we speak, friends, every word we write reflects on the gospel of Jesus Christ, not just us. If we are followers of Jesus, it doesn't just reflect on who we are. When we are mean, nasty, and hate-filled, it's not just us that is being reflected. It is the image of Christ that is being diminished and harmed. Look what Paul wrote about this in Ephesians. He says the highly similar thing. In Ephesians chapter 4, Paul just says, look, when you talk, do not say harmful things, but say what people need. Words that will help others become stronger. Then what you say will do good to those who listen to you. Wow. Paul, Jesus, James, three of the top-tiered guys in the Gospels, in the early church, in the message of the early church. These three top-tiered guys want to say to us, there's something profoundly important about how we speak, what we say, how we write. Friends, there is no more pertinent time than now. In these months, during the pandemic, as the election comes up, as we face racial tensions, there's no more critical time than now for us to speak the truth of the gospel, for us to speak the hope of the gospel, for us to speak the compassion of Jesus Christ, for us to build up rather than tear down. Let's not be the spark that causes a fire. Let's not be the flames that lead to eternity, but rather let's be the hope and the possibility that leads to God's powerful eternity. So, several years ago, when I became a mentor, like many of you did through the 1+1 program, I was sent to Hedrick Elementary, as I know many of you were as well. And I was fascinated within the first week or two as I, perused the halls. I saw a poster here and there in the hallways, and I was fascinated by the posters because it was a powerful lesson about the very thing that James is trying to talk to us about. And now I've since seen it at middle school hallways and in high school hallways. And I think to myself, we adults, we need this. It's not just the kids who need this. Clearly they need it. But we need to emulate and model this for them as well. The poster simply worked on an acronym for the word think. And its concept was, before we speak, or in this case, before we write, let's think and let's image ourselves in the 5 letters of the word think. It's very simple, and I want to encourage us and call us to claim this power as we live into what it is James has to say to us. So every time you want to speak, every time you want to write, I want you to think about this word, think. The T simply stands for, is it true? Is it true? Friends, lies and misinformation cause harm, and they cut at our own integrity and character. It takes a simple Google search to determine whether you've seen something that's true or not. Let's validate what we say, what we share, what we forward, what we speak. Is it actually genuinely true? The gospel is true. Hope is true. Let's ask ourselves, is what I'm about to say or write, is it true? The second is it helpful? Is it helpful? All I can say here is what I'm about to say going to add value? Or is it going to destroy or destruct or tear away at or cause harm? Let's be helpful. Let's not create devastation, right? Let's be helpful. The third is it inspiring? You know, if we've learned anything in life, it's that every last one of us aspires to greater things. And what would it be like if what I spoke or what I wrote literally invited people to be built up and to greater opportunities rather than to undercut or to diminish or to tear away at? Can I inspire rather than literally maybe retire, right? The N stands for, is this necessary? I think among all of these letters, this might be the best one. And I simply ask this question, is what I'm about to say or write needful, or do I just want to say it? And if you're like me, there are many times I've wanted to write something or I've wanted to say something, and I had to pull back because it wasn't needful. I just wanted to get at that person or to really tear at that person, right? Is it necessary? And then finally, is it kind? Look, friends, it costs nothing to be kind. Nothing. And if there's anything in our world that speaks into the gospel, if there's anything in our claim to faith that is powerful, it is the kindness and the compassion and the generosity of Jesus that makes all the difference in the world. Listen, friends, we cannot control the vitriol and the viciousness and the vindictiveness of others. We can't. But what we can control is us. Listen to what James says near the end of this section of chapter 3 as he reminds us of how important the tongue is and of its power for goodness. He says this in verses 17 and 18, real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life and is characterized by getting along with others. It is gentle and reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessings, not hot one day and cold the next, not two-faced. You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoy results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honor. Friends, when we're about to write or text or post or speak, let's think. Let's think. Let's do the hard work of what it is Christ is calling us to, how it is James is claiming for us this good news and this opportunity for this one little part of our body, the tongue. Friends, this gospel that we claim, it can be desperately harmed by the words or the letters that come off of our fingers. I want to suggest that we have the power to cause harm or to bring hope. And my prayer for all of us is that we would much rather offer hope than cause harm. So let's think. Every time we're getting ready to either respond to somebody's stuff or for the very first time share something about the issues of the day, let's follow James's wisdom. Let's be honorable to Christ. Let's lift high the cross. Let's give glory to the gospel with the words that come from this little bitty thing called the tongue. Friends, let's think and let's honor God. Will you pray with me? God, thank you for the power of word, for the power of your word, Jesus Christ, and for the opportunity we all have to fall in line with James's wisdom to calm the tongue, to take on the wisdom of Christ, to share with our words and with the words that we write on the screen the powerful good news that Christ is alive, that He is Lord of all, and that hope always wins. God, help us to be people of hope and of love, of mercy and compassion. May it start with the tongue. May it roll off our lives to action, and may it be profound in its impact on the world. God, let us be that little spark that doesn't start a forest fire, but rather fans the flames of your Holy Spirit in the world. Thank you, God, for the opportunity. Help us now to do the good work of sharing your good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, in whose name we now pray. Amen.